Hello there, welcome back to TerrafirmaCraft Hardrock. I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're going to jump right in and start today with some farming. First, we need to make a set of hoes. We can make 2 at once if we use this sort of recipe here. And then we should grab some seeds and we'll look at the next part of this. So, in TerrafirmaCraft, all plants have a growth range. Here we are, where in the guidebook it shows you that we need a soil hydration between 15 and 65% for cabbage, and a temperature range between -10 and 27 degrees Celsius. That's true for every plant. You'll see that some of them have low hydration minimums, and some of them, like maize here, has a high hydration. Unlike vanilla, we do not need to build our farm next to water. If we till this soil here, even though we are quite a distance away from the water, you can see that it has 18% hydration all the way up here. We go down here, this also has 18 because we're not next to the water. We click that one, that's at 98 because it's directly next to the water. So you do not need to be right next to water in order to provide hydration to your crops, which means you can build farms quite far away from water. And depending on what crop you're growing, you're not going to want it next to the water because, yeah, look at cabbage again. If it has greater than 65% humidity, hydration, the crop will die. So we can plant our cabbage up here with no problem and it will grow, well, perfectly fine. Carrots need 25% hydration, so we can't quite do that here. And that was barley. Barley requires 18, so we can do our barley up here also. We cannot pick up water sources yet, so we can't really transport water up to our farm. But in the future, we will have ways to move the water, even though we can't yet create source blocks. And that will be a way to help hydrate the soil. Note, if you're going to hydrate the soil, do not hydrate it with salt water. If you try growing something alongside salt water, I'm pretty sure it kills it. I'd have to double check on that. There we go. We got our first crops going. So then we can start growing some food, in addition to what we're going to have to be hunting. Let's see. Tomatoes should require a high hydration. They require 30 to 90, so we can't do that. And rye requires 25, so we can't do that either. To get to this page with all the different crops, you need to go either to your advanced mechanics here and go down to crops. It is in alphabetical order, or you can select entity index and scroll down to crops, and this will just give you a detailed description of all the different crops, the different nutrition, since there are 3, and tell you all the stats on different crops. Because of Jade, we have in the upper part of the screen a description of the crops. It tells you the temperature, the hydration, the growth stage, the yield, and the nutritions. We also get the information if we have our hoe equipped. Each crop has a nutrition requirement. Cabbage is nitrogen. If we find a fertilizer with nitrogen, we add it to the field here with the cabbage, it will help the crop grow faster and yield a larger yield when it's done. However, it will consume that nitrogen, but it will add phosphorus and potassium at the same time. So what you can do is fertilize your fields, and then you want to rotate the fields so that you get the most out of each season, each growth cycle. You grow your cabbage in the field, you use up the nitrogen, so then you plant something that doesn't use nitrogen. Let's say carrots. And the carrots would absorb, say, potassium, but add nitrogen back in, and so on and so forth. That way you can get larger yields from the same size farm field. Okay, this is actually working this time. I put 2 rhyolite rocks into my pot with water. It is boiling. I did add a second log, I did add a third log. So I'm going to have 3 in here total. Let's see how long it takes to boil. Once this is done, the water should be safe to drink. We don't have to worry about getting sick. In the meantime, I'm waiting for this stuff to all melt so I can make an axe, a shovel, and a prospector's pick. And if you look all the way up there, you see those funny looking dots? That's actually pollution. We are generating pollution over here, and I have never used the pollution mechanic before, so I don't know what it does exactly or how to reduce it, but I do know that it can cause explosions. So we're gonna have to be careful and figure that stuff out. And by the way, you can pick up charcoal with your hand. You don't need to use a shovel. However, because we have these, they will automatically default to using a shovel. So if you don't want to use a shovel, just make sure you don't have it in your inventory. That is almost ready. This is done. So now we have boiled water. So I can grab this bucket, remove that in here. And now we have boiled water, which is safe to drink. And this rock, which we got from boiling the water, can be crushed into flux, which we can then use to weld ingots together to make our anvil. I'll just stick that in there, grind it. It did take 3 logs, and if each log is 1:15, so we're talking taking, well, over 3 minutes for the water to boil. So if you can find a log that has a longer burn time, like we might be able to get away with just 2 cedar logs, as opposed to 3 ash. But yeah. And just stick our flux in there, and when we have our copper ingots, we can then weld them together. That is something we'll tackle in a little bit, because once these are done, that's done. Let's make our prospector's pick. Once it's done, we can go explore, and I can show you prospecting. I did just do a short on prospecting, but this will be a little more in-depth look at how to actually prospect. Okay, let's make a few quick tools here. We're going to need some plant string. We're going to need 3 sticks and the string to make a crook. We need this for getting silkworms. I will describe that in a moment. We're going to make our shovel, our bronze axe, and our prospector's pick. Then we need to convert some of this flint into flint shards, which will then turn into flint scrap. And then 2 flint scrap and 2 more plant string. So I need to grab a bit more thatch here. Put those 2 like that. And that gives us some flint shears. In Hardrock, we can get string from killing spiders. We can get yarn from shearing sheep or alpaca or muskox. I think those are the 3 that provide wool. Or we can get silkworms from Ex Nihilo. I think that's the right mod. What we need to do though is, normally you would crook just the leaf. Doesn't work in Hardrock. We need to shear the leaf. Now we have a leaf block that we can put down, and then if we crook it now, we've got a chance to get... Oh, it regrows. How nice. We have a chance to get silkworms. So let's go grab a few more leaves here and try this again. There we go. We got a silkworm. So let's dump these items. And you know what? Might as well replace these with the good tools now. And there we go. We have a silkworm. So if we go up to one of these trees I planted, you know what? Let's go over here because there's a lot of trees all in close proximity. If we shift click this onto the leaf, it will now infest the leaf. This will eventually progress to 100% infestation, and it will spread to the other leaves. Once it's at 100%, we can then crook it again to get silkworms and silk, which we could then use for string. So, quick addendum. The infested leaf, yeah, it hasn't spread. So what we might have to do is just shear a whole bunch of leaves and then try infesting them. So let's do that now. But if we crook this infested leaf, we get worms and we get string. There we go. That gives us a nice 30 plus leaves. We're going to just clear out this area a little bit more. Put these down. And let's try infesting these. So that one's infested. And that one's infested. And hopefully now all of these leaves will become infested, which will give us a lot more string. Nope. These don't work either. We might have to infest the leaves individually. Now that we have a prospector's pick, we can get started on actually finding ore veins. So we have some tetrahedrite here, which is a copper bearing ore. So if we right click with our pick, we'll see at this location we found a small sample of tetrahedrite. Do note with these lower tier tools like the bronze and the copper, you can get false negatives where it'll tell you there's nothing there when there is. So here we got small. When you prospect, it will search 12 blocks in that direction, that direction, that direction, that direction, that one, and below you. So a 25 by 25 by 25 cube centered on the block you checked. If it detects ore within that cube, it will tell you. Since we found a small sample here, we're going to head a few blocks this way and try again. Alright, we found nothing. Let's move a few blocks over and check. Now we found a trace. Trace is smaller than small, so at this location here, we are getting farther away from the main heart of the vein. So let's head this way now. We check here. Nothing. That might be a false negative again. Found trace again. Okay, so here's trace. Here's small. And there's trace. So which means if we go in this direction, it should also give us small or trace or nothing at all. Yeah, nothing. So this is heading further away from the heart of the vein. So if we head in this direction, it should start to go up. Now we have a medium sample. If we go over here, nothing. Medium sample. Trace. Medium sample. Small. Okay, so that's telling me that this vein is 1, fairly deep, and 2, is centered around here. So if I put a mark right here, if we then get out our shovel, we start digging down, and remember, blocks have gravity, so if we mine incorrectly like that, we will cause the blocks to collapse. We can start digging down, and after... Oh, you know what? I should not be doing this without ladders. So we're going to grab some ladders, and then we're going to dig down, and we're going to look for the ore. In the meantime, we should absolutely pick up all of these, because these are useful for making copper tools or copper ingots. And we do need to make 14 copper ingots in order to make our copper anvil, which is our next major task. So I'm going to gather up these. I'm going to get some ladders. We are going to dig down, and then we're going to look for ore. Well, I grabbed some ladders. Got them in here. They do fit in a vessel, and this is actually a pretty good way to store supports and ladders, is you keep them in a vessel while you're going out. But our center point right there is almost directly over this cave, so we can use this cave to help speed up the process a bit. What we want to do, though, is build some support beams. If we do this, this will prevent any block in a 3x3 from that center block there from collapsing. So, gravel falls in TerrafirmaCraft as well as vanilla. We place it there, it's not going to fall. Which means we can start digging here, and we won't have to worry about anything collapsing on us just yet. We are going to want to dig down a bit further, though, since the heart is a little that way. We go this way a bit. And now we found ourselves on top of the rhyolite again. Rhyolite? I'm going to keep saying that one wrong, too. But there we go. Now we found some tetrahedrite. And if you notice, 1, 2, 3. If we dig this one, 4. Okay, so it's actually 4 from the center block. So that one collapses. So what we want to do now is clear out an area over here, over the rhyolite, over the tetrahedrite. And we're going to stick down another set of supports. And then we can start digging out all this ore. There's 2 ways to do this, early game at least. You can either do what we're doing here, where we're putting supports down and mining out as we go, or you could do a top-down method where you essentially build a giant quarry and you just mine everything out from the top down. Another trick is wood does not collapse, logs or planks. So if we run back home quickly and grab ourselves a few planks, we can place those down. We can mine we can mine some of the tetrahedrite, place a plank down, and then place a support on top of the plank, and it will not collapse on us. And like a dummy, I forgot to record. So we put a slab there, put a slab there, and then we put our supports here. The supports can be mixed and matched. You don't have to use one wood type. And now everything around here will be protected from caving in on us. However, we are digging down to collect all this tetrahedrite. We are going to need a lot of logs to continue doing it this way, since, well, if we keep digging out like this, I mean, we're just going to be digging down, so we're going to be uncovering the ore as we go down. We don't have to worry so much about the roof caving in on us. But if we then start going down, say we drop down another 3 layers here, and then we decide that we don't want to have to keep worrying about collecting the ore up here, we want to start digging this way. We have to worry about cave-ins, so we would need more supports. As is, I think we should be good for now. This is going to get us a lot of ore. We are going to need to set up our sluice again, since we need to hammer all this ore. We're going to need to hammer it to get rocky chunks, which we then have to wash in a sluice, or when we get to create a bulk fan, which we're then going to need to grind in a quern. I don't see it there. And then we need to wash it again, and then we'll have usable copper. And if you notice, we do have 3 different grades of copper here. We have normal, poor, and rich. The grade depends on how much ore you get. So the poor will give us 3 chunks, which will, when washed, will give us 3 copper powder, or 15 millibuckets of copper. You need 100 millibuckets to make a ingot. So with poor, we're going to need 7 poor to make 1 ingot. Normal gives us 25, so we only need 4. And then rich gives us 35, so we only need about 3. And of course, we need to make, as I mentioned earlier, 14 ingots of copper. So we're going to need to get quite a lot from this. Now, you may have noticed something, that if you see those particles coming off of a rock, that means it's unstable. If we mine more rocks around it, it could collapse. You heard that? That means that, but that's another sign that the rocks are unstable. They also shook a little bit when I mined them. If we continue mining them unsupported, they will collapse and cause a cave-in. Now, there's not much here to worry about. This is as safe a cave-in as I could possibly cause. And I'm trying to actually do it to show you. There we go. That's what happens when it caves in. If an ore rock caves in, the ore gets destroyed. You'll get just cobblestone. But yeah, that's what you want to avoid. That's what these supports are for. And just like I showed you in the first episode, we're going to set up the sluice here. So we want to mine out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks. That one is where the water stops. So we're going to then place the sluice down on those 2 blocks. Just like that, after I finish picking up absolutely everything else. And then we have to clear down an additional block below that. There we go. Now the water is flowing in. We can then take our tetrahedrite we just mined up, put this in our crafting grid with our hammer to get rocky chunks, which we then throw into the water stream here. They will autofill into the sluice, and they'll be washed down into, here we go, chunks of tetrahedrite. Now we can either grind this in a quern to get dirty tetrahedrite, or once we have create, we can use crushing wheels or the millstone. And then once we have the dirty tetrahedrite, we wash it once again to get the powder, which we can then use in forging. Again, if we had a hopper down here, we could automatically collect, or a chute from create, we could collect all the items being washed and auto store them. Ooh, looks like we can make wooden hoppers. Might have to look into getting that set up to help speed up this process. Alright, and this looks like I can make a small gear by chopping a slab on the chopping block 3 times. Put the slab there, grab my axe. Alright, we got our chest already. There we go, we got a wooden hopper. Alright, but I don't know if this hopper has an internal inventory, like... Do vanilla hoppers have internal inventories? I forget. Yes, they do. I don't know if this has internal inventory. So let's find a tree to chop down. So we get some logs going. We can make another chest. And then be able to just store everything into that chest from our sluice. While we're at, we could probably make a second sluice just to speed up the process a little bit more. Okay, so the hopper method isn't exactly perfect. Sometimes the rocks jump up to the side or land here. But for the most part, they're going into the hopper, which, by the way, has 1 inventory slot, and get fed into the chest I have underneath the slab. So yeah, you can automate this. It does have a little bit of waste if you're not watching it. So probably not the best method. But what we can then do now is clear a path this way. Oh, there's a pond here. I was going to say clear path this way, and then we can make another sluice and have it go this way into another slot. And have a second set. I'll have a second sluice going. Let's go make up a second sluice and we'll try that. There you go, nice sluice. Yeah, that one doesn't work. So if I instead go this way. Yes, that works. Okay. So now we got 2 sluices going, although we only have one of them semi-automated. There we go. Now we can process twice the ore at once. We still haven't ground any of it down yet, though. Because we have the ore processing mod, which we've been making heavy use of the handstone here for the quern, it is very low on durability, as you can see from the red bar. So we're going to have to go get 2 more. Well, we have 1 here, but we're going to need to get some more raw stone we can make another handstone. Thankfully, since we are mining over there, we can go dig out an extra raw stone without much issue. Oh, and mobs can spawn in caves. So if you're going to be working in a cave, you got to be careful you don't end up spawning creepers and whatnot. But here, so this raw phylarite, it is practically suspended by itself. If we dig out this and this, it pops off. And there we go. We've got another stone. We can go make our handstone. We do want a second one, so if I mine this block here. Right, we gotta be careful because we're a little bit close to causing a cave-in. Let's grab some more supports. I don't need it that tall. And that should support... Ooh. Except that's going to cause a problem. Because we want to mine out that stone. And then we want to mine out that stone. But because it's being supported by the actual support, if we mine it, it's going to stay floating. So we got to actually destroy the support we just put down. And then I can mine this one. And there we go. We got the raw stone back. And now we can put these down. And support the area again. And I can start mining out those. And we should now have enough copper back at base to make our copper anvil. So I'm going to mine up a few more of these. So I can get started processing a bit more. And we're going to start working on an anvil. And when the handstone's about to break, it will get this broken texture on it. Like you see, this is my third click since it got that texture. Alright, still around. But yeah, so when it does this, you know it's only got a few more uses left. You're going to want to make a backup handstone. So we just need to process a little more copper. I literally need 10 more millibuckets of copper. And we're done. Well, with this step, we can then go and make ourselves the anvil. Oh, and this is actually really useful. As I've been processing this, I've been getting dolomite. Dolomite can be crushed into flux. We need flux in order to weld the ingots together. So we're getting what we need to make the anvil just by processing the ore, which is very convenient. And we're going to close off this episode by making ourselves a copper anvil. Now, I didn't do this very smart. I put all these bits of copper in the vessel and then stuck in the forge. What I should have done is just fed in the bits of copper one by one, had 3 ingot molds and the vessel here, so any overflow went straight into here. But what we can do now, see, I took it off too fast, it re-solidified. So now I gotta wait for it to heat up again. What we can do now is start transferring all the copper from the vessel into the ingot molds, pull the ingots out of the molds, and when you pull an ingot out of the mold, there is a small chance the mold breaks. So you want to have extra molds. I have 6. That should be good for a minute or so. There we go. The mold broke. I right-clicked to pull the ingot straight out. What we can do with these now is toss them back in here quickly. We want to wait for them to be hot enough that they say... Yeah, I got be smart with my inventory here. These guys say can weld. I want them to be at about 900 degrees. When they start to turn orange, that's when you want to pull them out. Close enough. Go over here, toss them both on. Shift click with the hammer. We now have a double ingot. I have to do this 7 times in total. And when they're done, we'll be able to craft a copper anvil together. Oh, one of them cooled down before it was ready. Well, they both cool down. That's why I like waiting until they're 900 something. There we go. They get orange. They're close to melting. Then I can hammer them. And this should be hot enough to last a little while. And yeah, so we're almost ready for the copper anvil. You cannot craft any copper tools on the stone anvil. I think I mentioned that in the last episode. And there we go. So that's done. We can ditch that there. Go pick up these, at least a few of them. That is almost ready to use. Toss those two on. You want to be careful. Once it turns orange, it can melt again. So you don't want it melting. Or at least it's getting close to the point where it can melt. In the future, when we get enough kaolite and graphite that we can start making fire clay, we can make a crucible, which will make this whole process much faster, much easier, much less risky. I should probably make... Oh, there. But yes, the crucible, you need fire clay. You do it in this shape here. You get the unfired crucible. You then fire it like you would anything else in the pit kiln. And then you can make a crucible which can hold 40 ingots at a time. To make the fire clay, you need kaolinite and graphite, which can be a bit of a pain to get your hands on. But once you have them, one of them cool down. It makes your life just that much easier. And there we go. So now we have all of our copper ingots. Go over to our crafting table here. Make our copper anvil. And there we go. Now we can actually start making copper tools. When you put a copper ingot here, you can click plans and select whatever plan you want to work on. Picks, shovels, so on and so forth. We cannot make bronze tools with this anvil. To make bronze tools, we need to do the same thing. Make bronze in here, weld it together on the copper anvil, and then make a copper anvil. And then make a bronze anvil. And then we can make bronze tools. Because the anvil has no durability, it's probably best to make a bismuthinite anvil if you have the resources to make bismuthinite. If you don't, just stick with a bronze anvil, you'll be fine. Alright, but we're going to call it an end here. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've had a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Later!